Hello, and welcome to this quick analysis of The Force Awakens. First of all, spoiler alert. This video is full of detailed citations from the film, so don't watch this until you've seen the movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, why are you doing anything else right now anyway? Seriously, this is a great film. Hurry up and go see it today. In this video, we'll explore 5 literary tropes and allusions in The Force Awakens that will hopefully make it an even more satisfying experience, and will correct the mistaken notion that there's nothing new in this film. Despite being patterned after Episode 4, The Force Awakens has a few novel tricks up its sleeve. No pun intended. So, what is The Force Awakens really about? The great thing about the names of Star Wars movies is how practical they are. What is Return of the Jedi about? It's about the Order of the Jedi returning from the brink of extinction. What happens in The Empire Strikes Back? The Empire fights back after the beating it took in Episode 4. That title, The Empire Strikes Back, is also the only title in the franchise that constitutes a complete sentence, until Episode VII, The Force Awakens. Note the focus of that title. It isn't about Jedi or Sith or clones or an empire. The Force itself is the star here. This is a movie about the Force coming out of a long coma, as it were. It's hard to make a movie about an invisible mystical power, much less one where that power is active. J.J. Abrams did it by using Luke's absence and reappearance as a symbol, as well as R2-D2's literal dormancy and awakening. Of course, Rey's growing awareness of her abilities is the major manifestation of this theme. Notice the narrative inversion here. In the first 6 Star Wars films, the light side of the Force is really kind of a bland, static thing. It gets preached about a lot and it helps people move objects and such, but that's mostly it. Only the dark side is ever shown to be a passionate thing, a lively thing that works on people to change who they are. In The Force Awakens, that situation is reversed, most significantly in Kylo Ren's insistence to Snoke that he will not be seduced by the light side, and later in his monologue to Darth Vader's helmet that he feels the light side calling to him, but will resist it. Luke and Anakin were both described as being strong in the Force, but this is the first time anyone has had the light side of the Force call out directly to them. And Kylo's not the only one. Maz Kanata also uses the active word call when she tells Rey that the Skywalker family lightsaber is calling to her, and that the light has always been with her. This is a neat little shift of focus for the franchise, and one that fleshes out the Star Wars universe. Back to that Kylo Ren monologue. Did it look familiar? An emotionally tortured young man speaking poetically to the head of a deceased paternalistic role model? That's right, Kylo Ren is channeling Hamlet, and that's the first of our 5 allusions today. But wait, you say. Hamlet was obsessed with his father, and Ren worships his grandfather. Well, folks, besides the obviously similar imagery, the exact template can be a bit flexible. I'll appeal to no less a literary authority than James Joyce, who, at the beginning of his modernist classic Ulysses, has one character comically describe a theory like this. He proves by algebra that Hamlet's grandson is Shakespeare's grandfather, and that he himself is the ghost of his own father. So, yeah, Kylo Ren can totally be Hamlet. Gee, I wonder what this foreshadows about his future. I mean, Hamlet got a happy ending, didn't he? He figured out all his conflicting feelings about his family and lived happily ever after. Right? Here's a second allusion based on Ren. He was a disciple in the inner circle of a group whose leader was founding a new religious order, but he then betrayed that leader when he sided with their enemies. At least to a degree, that makes Ren a type of Judas Iscariot. And if that allusion is accurate, it's certainly a much more subtle biblical reference than the very clumsy Immaculate Conception and Order 66 of the prequel trilogy. Blah. Speaking of Kylo Ren, what about that scene where he and Rey fight over the Skywalker lightsaber? He tries to use the Force to pull it out of the snow, but can't. But then Rey does it. Again, ring any bells? A weapon can't be drawn by the unworthy, but only by the innocent young outsider who's been chosen by destiny to wield its magic? Yes, Rey is walking in the footsteps of none other than King Arthur here. Rather than a sword from the stone, Rey has drawn a saber from the snow. This allusion is yet another first for the Star Wars franchise. Also, the Rey-Arthur connection is further evidence that she's not just a random young outsider after all, but secretly part of the royal lineage of this story. Remember when she meets BB-8 and he says that his origin is classified, and she jokes that hers is too, that it's a big secret? That'll end up being ironic. By the way, in Spanish the word Rey means king, and notice that Rey and Ren are only one letter off, so we're looking at an important pairing here. Let's move on to Supreme Leader Snoke. That's another great name. Part snake, part smoke. That combination might lead us to see that he may not be what he seems. Everybody's talking about what his appearance tells us about him, but what if his holographic appearance is just a con? Really, all we know of him is the giant image we see projected in his special throne room. That reminds us of our 4th illusion, the Wizard of Oz. I suspect that when we finally do see the man behind the curtain, we'll be surprised by a Snoke who isn't really what he wants us to think he is. Finally, let's talk about that iconic closing shot of Rey and Luke Skywalker on the island. The hermit guru trope is so old and well established that of course Star Wars has used it, but The Force Awakens adds the mountain detail. This detail is such a common aspect of the trope that it's been a staple of cartoons for decades, even being parodied on The Simpsons, in Season 5's Homer and Apu, where the duo trek on a pilgrimage to the top of a remote mountain in order to commune with the CEO of Quickie Mart. But the usage in Episode VII is straightforward. A young apprentice literally climbs up a remote mountain to commune with the wise old man at the top. The addition of the mountain setting is a nice wrinkle to the use of this motif in Star Wars, and a perfect example of what makes this such a great movie. Yes, it's full of familiar material, but there's also a lot of new stuff, and even the familiar stuff is presented in clever new ways. Well, that does it for now. I'll see what other connections I find in future viewings, and I hope you will too. In the meantime, here are a couple of other videos about pop culture and literature that you might like if you enjoyed this one. Happy viewing, and may the Force be with you.